really like to take the show to Christchurch, which is the home of the New Zealand Nuclear Free Zone Committee and Peacemaking Association and of Laurie Ross. So it would be lovely to present it there. But even a higher aspiration would be to establish a permanent peace museum for New Zealand. And yes, and to be able to feature the whole range of organizations that worked for peace and for a nuclear-free New Zealand and are still working for a nuclear-free world.
Mm. Yeah. And so what message do you hope people would take from this exhibition?
Oh, just the difference that one person can make if they apply their knowledge, their skills, and their determination, that we really can achieve what seems like an impossible dream, as the nuclear-free New Zealand did at the time. Even in the 1980s, it seemed that we couldn't persuade enough people or government to take such a brave step, especially because it would be counteracting the wishes of the United States and other nuclear nations that would oppose New Zealand's independent defense and foreign policy stand as a nuclear-free peacemaker nation. But in fact, we've grown in respect in that role with our friends and allies, and even those who some might say are the enemies. But in fact, New Zealand is well respected throughout the world. We're now on the Security Council of the United Nations.
And of course we have that clean green image as well, don't we, around the world?
Well, that's definitely a part of the overall ethos. A nuclear-free New Zealand includes how we look after the land, the waters, the seas, the rivers, the trees, and so not even to allow nuclear power has been a huge step that New Zealanders were able to take, and now we do need to take many more steps if we want to protect our forests and rivers and seas, to maintain not just an image, but the integrity and truth of being an environmentally sound country with an economy that's based on those social and environmental values.
So you believe that by knowing the history of New Zealand and its journey to become nuclear-free, it empowers people to feel that they can actually make changes and have a world that where they can live what they believe in?
Well, that's right. You could say that when you look at this, particularly this map of New Zealand, and you see that individual cities and towns all had to have little neighborhood peace groups that would go out into the marketplace and have people sign the petition and get informed, get the education information, and then go to a local council and get the council to declare a nuclear-free zone. So that's where the people power is being employed in the right way, the democratic process, and systematically to build up gradually that groundswell, that foundation, which is necessary to change a central government policy, especially of this kind. And that's why this campaign is particularly exemplary. It's a real role model, not just for other countries who want to become nuclear-free, but for any major issue or campaign that people know is best for this country, but they still have to start locally and convince their own friends and neighbors in their own area.
And do you think that kind of campaigning is adaptable to other countries?
Definitely. In fact, even if you think of Japan and Australia, Canada, in fact, throughout the world, it's a good question. I'm not sure how many thousands of nuclear-free zone cities there are, but I do know that there's now over 6,500 mayors for peace and cities for peace. So that's right now, and that's because, again, the local people went to their council, and those mayors for peace, their number one commitment is the abolition of nuclear weapons. And then you can say, oh yes, cultivating a culture of peace based on social justice, human rights, nonviolence, environmental protection, all of that is part of what one is working towards in terms of peace. But the foundation is to make sure we don't annihilate ourselves with weapons of mass destruction. And we're that close, even now, even 70 years after Hiroshima, could be miscalculation, some technical error or terrorists getting hold of the nuclear weapons. So that's why the abolition of nuclear weapons is still a vital foundation for the ongoing work for peace, justice, environmental protection, etc.
So in the recent AUT Peace Conference that you attended, I heard there was a movie there that was really good. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The Man Who Saved the World.
The Man Who Saved the World?
Yeah. Stanislav Petrov, 30 years ago, in 1983, he was in the position of the Russian military of command and control. So he was on duty one night with probably around 30 or more other people in the main control room. And you could see that it looked like an American nuclear missile was coming to bomb Russia. And all the different computer checks that they were doing indicated that yes, indeed, this is exactly what was happening. And then there was another one and another one. And what we saw in that movie was just how one man had to really examine his mind, his heart and soul, his conscience, and decide, is this something that he should just react to, as he's been trained to do, which is nuclear missiles coming from an enemy, we must counterattack immediately. Launch on warning, it's called. Launch on warning. And the defense and foreign policy of both nations is called MAD, Mutually Assured Destruction. So that was back in the 80s. And at that time there was about 50,000 nuclear bombs. And you only need less than 100 to destroy the whole world. So you only need one mistake, one error, and then once that starts off, then the other side retaliates, and so on, and within a few hours you've destroyed both countries and probably most of the world. But this man, he actually had somehow deep in his heart or deep in his conscience, he knew he could not, even if it was true that America had launched an attack, even if it was true, he still wasn't prepared to destroy the whole world out of anger, revenge, or out of his military training in terms of obeying orders.
What a moment.
I know. Yes. And the great thing, you could say, well, what sort of explanation is it? But the great thing is that he was right. And in fact, it was a mistake. The computers were wrong. And he had saved the world because he hadn't pushed that button that would have set off the Russian missiles, which would have bombed America, which immediately America would have seen those ones coming in, and before they hit, they would have sent off their missiles and really would have hit Russia. But somehow,
And then what would the result of that be?
Oh, the destruction of, the whole planet. I mean, just because once you start off that chain reaction, the millions of people are going to be killed instantly, in even like when you think of each city having millions of people in it, you only need one bomb on New York, and that's the end of New York, or Moscow. But they wouldn't stop at one each.
As the movie showed.
So
that was called The Man Who Saved the World. So